Interview of Mr. Peter Deeb,
Right.
21 February 2001, Connecticut Street Armory, Buffalo, New York. Interviewer is Lieutenant Colonel Robert Von Hassel, and videographer is Mr. Michael Acree. Mr. Deeb, where were you born and raised?
Tonawanda, New York.
When were you born?
What year?
Yeah.
March 1919.
Okay. And did you grow up in Tonawanda?
Yes, most of my life. Well, say I have, but up until 1975, when I moved to I got divorced and moved to Wheatfield Street, Wheatfield, New York. That's near Buffalo, near Niagara Falls. It has a Niagara Falls address.
So, what did you do after you graduated high school?
Pardon?
After you graduated high school, what did you do?
Right into the Army. I was drafted. In fact, I was deferred for 6 months, and I still made the second draft.
And that was what year?
Pardon?
What year?
41.
41.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, see, I was drafted in the Army, I think in July in 41, something to that effect.
Okay. So, when you were drafted in the Army, where did you go first?
Well, of course, Fort Niagara for induction.
Right.
Fort Belvoir for my basic training. First Armored Division at Fort Knox. They were on maneuver at the time. I got part of that.
So you were in the 1st Armored Division originally?
Yes.
Okay, what did you do in the 1st Armored Division?
I was in the artillery. I was assigned to the... I took engineer training and they give you the artillery. You know how it is.
So what do you do in the artillery?
I was just regular gunner, you know. I mean, they have a, you know, they rotate the guys, put the guns and clean them up, stuff like that. That's all, just routine.
What kind of guns? 75 millimeter?
Yeah, at that time there were 75s.
Okay, and how long were you doing that?
Until until we went overseas and right after the war started. When was that? 41, yeah. 1940. We got overseas about June 42, or June or May. The 1st Armored Division went over then.
That was to North Africa.
Pardon?
North Africa?
No, we went to England.
England.
I mean, England, and at that point, I was down in Ireland. Then we went to Ireland, all right? From Ireland, I heard about going into the commandos, so I volunteered for it.
Okay, how did you hear about that?
Pardon?
How did you hear about...
What happened is the British commandos needed extra men, and the United States Army didn't have any liaison troops. Originally, we were supposed to be liaison from the artillery, right, Armored Division, and go to Scotland and learn about commandos, and then we would come back and train others in being liaison work with the commandos. But that was the original overall plan. That wasn't what happened.
Okay, what happened?
Well, Colonel Darby happened to be a native out of Arkansas, and they have ranger, what's it called? Folklore ranger training there. They had boy rangers is what they had. So he was perhaps one of the best knowledgeable men on rangers that we ever had. He went through West Point, and he still insisted that rangers is going to be what he wanted. So when he got over there, he engineered a system, a way around. We picked up 1,500 men out of all the Armored Division 30 for all the people who was over there. It's about 50,000 troops at that time. They took the select of all those that they thought could withstand that. And Darby engineered the idea of cutting us down to 500 and becoming originally part of the 1st American Commandos. That was the overall pitch. Well, that resonated with the United States Army at the time. They thought that we would be the 1st American Commandos and we come back into the military service. But Darby knew that it would be damn near impossible to have a commando type unit back under military command. Now maybe you don't know about it. When we got overseas, this is background stuff, when we got overseas we didn't have a single gun, now get this, not a single gun that could compete with the Germans. We didn't have a single military idea, like they had panzers and they had special, what's called storm troops. We didn't have nothing to compare with that, understand? We were practically helpless. We couldn't use the Marines. The United States Marines did not fight in Europe. They couldn't use them because they were totally compromised. They'd have been no different than an infantry outfit. So they sent them back, so they sent them to the islands. You understand? I mean, that's your background. Well, Colonel Darby wanted to show the British commandos, and he was authorized to do this, by the way, at Casablanca. The President of the United States, General Marshall, and all the rest said, yes, a good idea to have a comparative unit with the commandos. But they didn't know that when you went through the commandos, you had to forego all American, all connection with the United States Army. You became an independent fighting outfit, just like the commandos were. See, after Dunkirk, you can't use military command anymore. And with our army, since we didn't have anything to fight with over there, we couldn't cross the channel, nothing like that. So there was no damn sense having us under a military command that couldn't understand what the hell is going on over there. Just like the British. The British was defeated, right? So what are you going to do? Listen to them? You can't. So they set the commandos aside, and they set us aside.
But see, now you originally went to be artillery liaison.
That's right.
To the British commandos.
Right. Originally, that's the original idea.
Did you actually do any of that?
No, I was called, like I says, when we got to a place called Carrickfergus, 1,500 of us were picked to do that. Colonel Darby connived to make a Ranger battalion. Now he had that in mind all the time. He knew that there was no way that this thing is going to work.
Carrickfergus was in Scotland?
Yeah, where? Carrickfergus in Ireland.
Ireland, Northern Ireland.
Yeah, then we went to Scotland for training up at Achnacarry. So we weeded down 1,500 to 500. Okay?
Mm-hmm. So tell me about Ranger training in Scotland.
It's identical with the British commando training. It was live ammunition. It was instead of training, what they did is they took actual example of warfare in Europe, and they would infuse that in your training command. See, for instance, now let me tell you what happened there. They were forming a commando outfit, all right? They had men in there with 2 to 3 years combat training in desert warfare. They had guys in there from the Air Force, all branches of the service, and they're forming into one commando unit. All right? So our guys, we picked up all our guys, and we had a similar, breakdown, makeup of it. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, in order to take commando training, you had to sign off from all American West Coast. You couldn't be an American soldier anymore. You had to be under British command and British, because the training was so brutal that the United States Army wouldn't stand for it. Because they would fire live ammunition right within 6 inches of your body.
What else was different about Ranger training as opposed to regular?
Oh, all right. Let me see. The training was relative to actual combat that's been what's called. In other words, they don't have a set system because you're automatically, when you get there, you're automatically ready to go into combat. They tell you, if we need you, you're going to go tomorrow. That's all there is to it. So what they do is they try to give you a training that orients you to combat rather to the battlefield. See, the battlefield is your authority and everything. Instead of a Pentagon, we use the battlefield. Understand? And you're trained to respond to combat, not to authorization or regimentation or anything else. That's what they train you for. That's what they trained the British commandos for. They want to make damn sure that they're no longer, follow the orders of officers or anybody that was beat in Dunkirk, all right? You can't take their orders anymore. So you have to respond to somebody. So you respond to the battlefield. Whatever the battlefield, weapons or anything else that comes up there, you respond to that. Mm-hmm. You're no longer obligated to carry orders. And your officers in the Ranger and Commandos are the same. They must demonstrate their leadership. That's why I'd like to see. It's overnight combat specialists. Well, there's no such thing as an overnight combat specialist in the United States Army today or anything. Don't confuse that with today's Rangers. Today's Rangers are military-oriented. They're not combat-oriented. That's your big difference. So you have to train these men to understand, respond to combat conditions, whatever the battlefield dictates, whatever weapon that comes up there, whatever tactics.
Now, how did they train you to do this?
Pardon?
How did they train you to do this?
See what they did, they don't have instructors. What they have is a cadre from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd commandos. They would actually be a cadre to us. And they would, these men have been all combat trained men, I mean in combat. So what they want to know is how well can you respond, whether your background. They want a background check to whether or no they have any warrior grade people in your family. There's a whole bunch of things like that. And in fact, the biggest thing was what we call adrenaline reflex. In other words, if you get into a situation where you're shocked, you'll freeze. You can actually freeze in time. Then the shock of battle will do that to the guys. They'll do anything to it. They want to know how long it takes before you respond, get out of it. And the way they do it, they put a machine gunner up in front of you as you're going up a hill or something, and one behind you. And all of a sudden, they'll move that machine gun closer and closer to you, meaning get over. They don't order you to do it. You respond to a combat condition. You see?
So, how long were you in Scotland training?
I was there 2 months altogether. 1 month in and 1 month resting up after commando training. But our boys went in the Dieppe raid. We had a group of 50 that went on the Dieppe raid. Mm-hmm. See, I was the last chance for the United States or the British Army to take control of the situation, to go back into Germany. Of course, they got smashed. After that, Commando and Rangers had to be in front. There's no way out. Every move had to be under Ranger or Commando operation, but they weren't. We couldn't tell them what to do. We could show them what to do. You know what I mean? Demonstrate that our the wisdom.
Where'd you go after Scotland?
Then we went to North Africa. That's where we got on the boats and head for our zoo. Of course, that was Oran to you people. Mm-hmm. We made the first landing over there. Our first target area was the French Foreign Legion fort at our zoo. Mm-hmm. So we had to take their fort over, the French Foreign Legion place there. That's what we attacked at night. See, we do everything at night. We don't fight in the daytime if we can help it.
Were there any special preparations going in at our zoo because you were going up against the French? Let me put it this way. The British Admiralty knew where every single landing spot and everything was. All right? Mm-hmm. Our boys didn't know it, like Eisenhower's headquarters. He didn't know what the hell is over there. But the British did. Now, they would show you approximately, how far to go, at nighttime you go in, and within the first 3 hours, that's between 11 and 2 in the morning, you've got to accomplish your mission or get the hell out of there. Understand? Still under darkness. Well, So tell me about our zoo.
Our zoo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it was, they call it Cape Bon Peninsula. It was like a peninsula, all right? And I think it's around 15 miles away to Oran. In other words, this French Foreign Legion place controlled Oran. Understand? That's the original. That's what their fighting place. They didn't have a place in Oran. They didn't need it. They had them spotted all over Africa. These outposts, they call it. Well, this was one of their main forts, though. Fort du Nord, as they called it.
Mm-hmm. So how did the attack proceed? What happened?
Well, we landed that night about, I think it was a mile and a half away at a very small what's called port there. They got into there. We made the fast move up to the barbed wire and they had barbed wires and minefield there. Mm-hmm. So we had to get through. That was my job. I was supposed to be a minefield expert at night. So you take it away, and that's what we done. See, so we got up there. You get to the point, and then we had 60 millimeter mortars.
Right.
So the object is to throw the mortar shell in there and slam your way into it. Get through there, and that's what we did. They had some. I think there were 12-inch cannons up there that guarded that particular area. It also guarded Oran. You had to get past there to go into Oran anyhow. See.
So you had to clear through the minefield?
Yes. That was my standard practice at night.
Now, how did you do that at Orzo?
Well, usually if it's at that particular place you run into, we knew they had a barbed wire system there. So what you do, underneath the barbed wire, they always have minefields. So you got to get in there and crawl on your hands and knees and start feeling around for their anti-personnel mines. The German personnel mines, they stick up like what's called like 3 fingers, you know what I mean, or whatever. You have to be kind of lucky too.
Mm. Okay, were there any special preparations you took because you would be fighting the French? Did you try to get them to surrender first?
What do you mean?
The French. You were fighting the French Foreign Legion.
Yeah.
Did you try to get them to surrender first? Did
No,
you let them know you were Americans?
see, the object is, they had the point we took was their artillery position that commanded everything. Down below us, about a half a mile away, was their Fort du Nord. Well, we had one group going in there. See, what you do is you cut the thing up. You cut the artillery or the ramparts. You cut that away from the main headquarters and the main garrison. You try to cut all 3 at the same time, which you can do at night. Understand? And you'll blockade the whole 3, and there's nothing they can do but surrender. What can they do? You're cutting them right to pieces. And that's why we worked all of it. All our fighting was done under the same similar type condition.
You're right. What I was asking was, these weren't Germans, these were French.
These were French, right.
Did you do anything to try to induce them to surrender?
No, well, they had to surrender because we had them done, and that was it. So when what happened is our colonel talked to their headmen, and there was a place about, I think, 30-some miles away, Sidi Belsaid. That's their main headquarters of the French Foreign Legion. Mm-hmm. So they communicated, and they said, you might as well surrender now, because there's no way that you can hold this fort, and our men are caught. So that finished it off right there.
So they surrendered?
Yeah, they surrendered it. It was handed over to the British or somebody. We turned over everything to them. Here, take it, because we don't stay there that long. We can't take prisoners. We don't have no place for them.
Anything else you remember about the attack on Orzu?
Pardon?
Anything else you want to add about the attack on Orzu?
Well, see, what we did, we had 6 what's called battalions, or 50 men each, all right? 3 of them went into the port, actual seaport itself, and we came in on the road. See, so you had a pincer movement, like, you understand? Well, they went right away. They went to the fort. Fort du Nord, and they split up the what's called. They split the garrison from that's their objective. Our objective was to get to the guns, silence them damn guns. Well, you silence the guns, then our ships can come in, our naval support could come right in and blow the hell out of them if they had to, because that was their last defense, is that.
So where did you go after there?
Well, let me see, we rested up for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then we were called in to go to out to the desert. That's Talep Airport. And we got on airplanes there, and just took right off and went out there to support our fighting unit down there, because they were beleaguered. They couldn't do anything until they had the Rangers lead the way, so to speak, all right? That's what happened. And any movement they made down there, they had to have Rangers in front of them.
So where was this? Where were you?
Algiers, Talep Airport, Algiers, where we landed. And we flew on these damn C-47 planes. We were never more than 300 feet off the ground, because you get up any higher, the German planes could pick you up, could see it, except through the mountain. There was a mountain area they had a zigzag through. And we landed there, and I'll get this. The minute we landed, they said, "Get the hell out." They wouldn't shut the engines off, you know. They said, "Get the hell out of here." And sure in hell, right afterward, the Germans come and sprayed that darn field within 10 minutes after we landed. Of course, we got out of there, but they didn't get our planes. They took off. And they just wheeled around and says, "Get the hell out of here, get out of here." And they just zoomed right away. They just took right off.
So what kind of operations were you involved in Algiers?
All right. In Algiers, no, that was down in the desert. I don't know if the place called Gafsa became our headquarters. Now that's down south about, I'd say 60, 70 miles down south, all right? And what we were supposed to do there, the United States Army figured out, and the British, actually it was British intelligence, they knew that Rommel was coming back across Libya up Tunisia, right? Now, there were 3 passes. One is the Faid, McNassie, and El Guitar, like a triple deal, all right? We could go take either one of them. But in the middle of there, at a place called Sened, there was a radar station, radar and observation, so that they could monitor anybody coming to these passes to get through. Well, this was an ideal situation for Patton. Patton took charge of this thing. And he said he wants to catch Rommel halfway, half of his outfit in Libya, half of it in what's called. And there was no defensive area for 100 miles up the Tunisian coast. So he wanted to hit them right through there, see? So he got ahead of the 1st Armored Division. But they had to take out Sened Station. Otherwise, they'd know which pass we were going to go through. All right? So, now the Germans not being dumb, they said they knew that the minute we hit Sened Station, knocked it out, all right? Knocked out their eyes and ears. And we got back to Gafsa. 2 days later, here comes the 1st Armored Division and everybody else for what was unnamed duel in the desert. In other words, Patton went out from Gafsa toward El Guitar, which was the best entrance to catch the Germans. Right. All right? So he was warned time and again by our intelligence, British intelligence, everybody said, "Don't go there, you darn fool, it's a trap." And it's the funniest thing, you know, just to give you a quick background story. The people out there, they had what they call a salt swamp. And a salt swamp is about 5 miles long. And on the other side is what we call outcrop and sand. So the road goes to El Guitar, all right? Now you had to go along, it's like a parade, I mean a convoy. So you were exposed. But they figured that the Germans couldn't come across the salt swamp, but they didn't understand the German mentality. The Germans went ahead and had they had 6 Mark 6 tanks. That's the very latest, the very most powerful tanks in the business. And they put 36-inch tracks on them so that they could go through the salt swamp any way they wanted. In fact, that's what the people there said. There's battleships going back and forth over here. Then they disappear. Well, what the disappearing act was they get to one place that's like a wadi. I mean, it's like a canal. It's a dry canal. And they zip in there and nobody'd see them anymore. And they'd practice back and forth. You know, I mean, they're defensive. So here comes our boys right through it. So we're going to bash the hell out of them this time, you know. And we told them that there's something wrong here. And one of our guys the day before went out looking at the salt swamp, and he seen these big tracks. He put out the, what's it called? Patton says nothing on earth is going to stop them. We're committed. We're going to get them. That's what he said. Well, we took the worst beating in the history of the United States Army. It was taken at that point, and at that position. They knocked out the 1st Armored Division in less than 6 hours. Every one of them, I went and seen the place afterwards. They knocked out every tank, anything we had, artillery pieces, tank was laying around like a junk pile. They never mentioned it. What you heard about was the Kasserine Pass. That was 40, 50 miles north. And the Kasserine Pass was like a cul-de-sac, all right? And the Germans wanted to block us from hitting the group going all the way up to Bessa. I mean, to northern, what's it called, northern Tunisia. They didn't want it, what's it called. And they would, for 3 days, they were marching right by tank after tank and truck and everything else. And we'd call the American Air Force. Get bombed, them damn son of a bitch. Go, wouldn't do no good. They said, no.
So were you involved in the attack on the radar station?
Yes, I was on the Sened radio.
Okay,
Yes.
tell me about that.
All right. Now, the Sened station, like I said, is at the point of the 3 passes. All right. Mm-hmm. Now, in order to get to it, we had to go and around it. We're like a dog leg to get behind it and spend a day 7 miles away from it. And on a place, there was an old French fort there, and we could look down on it during the day. Now, the way we hit that place, we gauged it. It was set up so that the moon would set right between 2 mountains, two mountain peaks. That's where you find it at night. You know, you got to have that. Well, we were timed so they timed it so when we could get there, that moon would be just about behind the silhouette. It would silhouette them, but not us. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And again, there was that minefield again around there, all right? Barbed wire minefield and everything else. And again, that was my job to get the boys in as close as we could get. So what we had there was, let me say mortars. We had small mortars. We saw a couple of bazookas. It didn't carry much weight because and we don't put no helmet on because the helmet, it reverberates anyhow when you use your gun. And we carried out the first and only bayonet charge. Actual bayonet charge was carried out by our Rangers because you can't fire. The minute you fired your gun, I had a Tommy gun. I fired a couple of rounds and a machine gun's bullet came by me like it. So you don't fire. The rest of the guys they were told to spread out and use your bayonets instead. There wasn't much command. You had to watch the leaders. The leaders were the officers. What they did, you did, you know. So that's what they got in. That's what happened. Actually, very few people knew it. We carried out a overnight, what's called bayonet attack. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, that's something. You see that, it'll shake you up real good. You wouldn't believe, huh?
How did you get back from the radar station?
Yeah.
Then from there you moved back to Gapsa?
Yes, we came after we got through. We got back to Gapsa, mm-hmm. And we were supposed to rest up there. And then we found out that Patton took charge of the whole bunch there because he was a tank man and all that stuff, and that he was going to go through. So there was a British intelligence unit that was in the field for 3-4 years already. They were down there with the 8th Army. They used to watch everything, and we got in touch with them. See, we got in touch with the guys, and they said, there's something going wrong there. You better check it out. So we sent men out there time and again and to see these boats going through the water, you know. But they were Mark 6 tanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, where did the Rangers go after that?
Pardon?
Where did the Rangers go after that?
After that, we had to fight rear guard action. In other words, we had to blow the bridges and everything else so our boys could get the hell out of there. So we let them get out, and we stayed behind at Gafsa as the last ones there, and we started blowing up bridges and anything, putting up road blocks and whatever we could. We didn't have much. And then we gave our trucks over to the General Hospital to get their people out of there. And of course, they backed up all the way to the Kasserine Pass. Now, 8 miles south of the was the Buchepka Pass. That's where we wound up. See, we were told to take and hold that pass. And that was the only straight line shot to Algiers. The Germans had it almost every day. They'd send somebody in there trying to get through it. Of course, it was a roadblock. You understand, there's a pass is close, and they had a roadblock there, and that was our job. Now remember, we were coming off of Sened, right? Mm-hmm. Rear guard action for 2 days to get our troops out of there. Then we had to get into this position and hold it against the German attacks every single day, and we were under fire almost constantly by the 88s. And we told them, we told everybody that the German guns had a range. AP could come 14 miles. We measured. We had a distance of from the guns that we knew where the guns were. The British had them all marked out. Every night the British would send this intelligence outfit. They'd expose themselves 2 miles away from the Germans, and it would force the Germans to fire their guns, then you'd pinpoint that spot. You know they can't going to move that guns anymore that night. Understand? Mm-hmm. So that's the way we got that. And we told them time and again, and it didn't do no good. They just wouldn't, Patton and them wouldn't listen. We saved their life. Them darn fools and the confusion, they were taking the wrong road. Eisenhower and 3 command cars full of generals and officers, all right? Took the wrong road. Darby had to take his Jeep and run up there, and he told him, stop, you damn fools, you're going into, it's a U-shaped turn, so instead of heading west, where you start out, the darn thing winds up east, around what they call a lateral. It's a mountain range that comes to the ground. And that's what you have there. So we went up and stopped them, saved their damn life, and guess what they do in the end? They fixed us good.
Okay, where did the Rangers go after that?
Let's see. We after that we rested up for about I think pretty close to a month. But during that time, now get this, we had about 2-month rest period coming, all right? So Eisenhower comes to Darby and says, there's an emergency situation. He said, the Germans got these damn rockets, the V-2 rockets at that time. The V-1 rockets, we were going to take them out too, from right across Oran. They were shooting the rockets in these buzz bombs into Oran. So we were supposed to go there, but the commandos took them out anyhow before we got a chance there. But I was notified because I was on the commando list. So that when the V-2s come in, start coming in from Germany, right away they says, we've got to take them out, and there's nobody here can do it except you Rangers. So what Darby had to do is he had to go out and recruit 1,000 more men so we could have a 3-battalion unit to do the fighting. All right? Mm-hmm. And we had to train them ourselves because the training process was special. I mean, that fit weapons of mass destruction warfare technique. It's something that nobody else has ever had or ever knew about. So we went in there, we had to train them for that time. for which we were supposed to be given a lot of money and time because we took up 2 months of our time rest period, all right, to train somebody else. The commandos charged the United States $12,000 at that time to train one ranger, the 2nd and 5th in England. We got nothing. But they promised us, oh, hell, yes, you're going to get this, you're going to have, they made a whole damn spiel of things. We got nothing. For setting up a organization that could handle, see, we were going to make a big tour right around Germany and what's called on the Murmansk run, come into Peenemünde and attack. Now Peenemünde was a lot of woods around there and everything else, which is perfect ranger country, all right? Mm-hmm. And our job, our thing was to get in there and take over the guns. This is what we call a blast area technique. In other words, if you get close enough to a rocket, all right, they can't fire the rocket because it'll kill themselves, right? So you have to figure out how to get there quick and block. And that's what we had it planned. So the British laid out commandos, and they were working with us. I was supposed to go with them. And they laid out all the positions and everything else that had to be done. And we said, okay, we're ready to go in to take. And the goddamn army gets heated up. Now get this. And they said the Air Force is going to, what's it called? They didn't tell us about it. But they went ahead, got 2,500 bombers, 10 tons each. Now, anybody that knows distance and bombers with 10 tons, they knew that if they flew to this position, there's no way on earth that they're going to turn around and come back. Now, the commandos had to set up what they call transponders so that they would be ticked off. They had one plane known as a Pathfinder. It would come in, and it would get there before, if anything happened, they could turn the planes back to England again, all right? When the Pathfinder heard those, what's it called, transponders go off, then they zeroed in on it and dropped red incendiary, what's it called, because it was cloud cover. So that you could still see the red, what's it called, go up. They told me all about this stuff because I was on their list. And they bombed the heck out of it. Out of 2,500 airplanes, 700 still made it back. Some went into Russia because they were right across Poland, all right? Some went into Sweden, and the others ditched themselves out at sea. They never mentioned it. Nobody's ever heard of the big raid at Peenemünde. Just like the raid down in Africa. They'll never admit taking a beating. You understand that, don't you? You'll never get them to apologize. They'll never admit a beating. They'll never tell you who did the fighting, anything. That's all off records.
Okay, tape 2 interview of Mr. Peter Deeb on 21 February 2001. Mr. Deeb, where were you when you first heard about these V-2 rockets?
We were in a place called, where we went back to Oran. We were supposed to go on our, what's it called, in a place called Dina Moors. Wait a minute. DuPont Dina Moors. It was the place there. It wasn't too far away from Oran. Mm-hmm. And we were there resting up at a French outpost. See, usually we're on boats. It's the Rangers' seaborne outfit. We don't have them now, but you're always either on boats or on a, rest camp area or something. They don't put Rangers or commandos in barracks. They don't. That's a no-no. We're supposed to be above that, you know.
So where did you go after Oran?
Oran. Of course, we were preparing for an invasion of Sicily. Mm-hmm. See, the Rangers have to go in combat to be training for one combat after another. To train for the weapons of mass destruction technique of warfare. You can't learn it anywhere else. You have to learn it from one battlefield to another. They pick out the men. We picked up our own, we trained our own men, selected them, trained them, staffed the outfit, all by ourselves, by Colonel Darby and his staff. Because he wanted to show the British commandos that we could do something they couldn't do. See, they had to have a place called Acnicary where they had a special staff, you know, to handle the thing. Now, those guys are all combat professionals, by the way, in Acnicary. They weren't military men, they were combat professionals. They, I mean, they looked like soldiers and all that stuff, but they couldn't have them. They couldn't have the association of military and commandos. They don't mix. The commandos are always take their orders from Mountbatten and the King of England directly. You swear allegiance. I was supposed to swear allegiance to the King of England when one of the Scotsmen told me, he says, swear allegiance to the crown. You can do that as an American soldier. You can swear allegiance to the crown of England, not the king, but the same thing anyway, you know. But that's just the background.
Okay, now, what was your role in the invasion of Sicily?
Of where? Sicily?
Yeah.
All right. Again, it was a night raid, okay? And I was on Colonel Darby's special team. See, he would pick a certain group of men for every different type of position that he's going to fight. And I was usually on his team because I was a nighttime demolition expert. So that's where my job was. And so we got to, we were heading for Algiers now these are all British landing crafts and British boats, because the United States didn't have any at that time. The United States didn't have a landing craft or operation, anything else. It all depended on the British Admiralty. Mm-hmm. And the British Admiralty, they knew that Colonel Darby was one of the outstanding soldiers of all that they've ever listened to. He could call them into anything, and they'd respond. If they had it, they'd respond right away. Now, we went into Sicily, I think it was the 9th, September 9th. I'm not sure about the date, but you can check on that, check that back. And again, now this was Patton's big operation. Well, what happened is a storm came up. So the whole darn bunch got screwed up on the landing. The ships were coming in one way or another, and what's called the paratroopers and all that. The paratrooper was supposed to land 7 miles inland from Gila, Sicily, and we were supposed to go in and meet up with them, and then have an airfield for ourselves. You see, it didn't. The wind was so high that the paratroopers couldn't make the jump. And Patton, in his usual blundering way, he ordered the 82nd Airborne, I'll get this, to come in the next day. Now, what the Germans knew we were there. They knew what the objectives were and everything else. He insisted. He said, they will come in. And when they started to cross, again, they hit some high wind. And guess what? The German Air Force bombers, now get this, we flew wingtip to wingtip with our paratroopers. And when Darby took a look at it, took up in the skies, the German planes, it was shoot the buggers down. And the Navy says, no, we have to get an authority from Patton. Well, Patton was out at sea. He wouldn't make the initial landing with us. He was still out there. He didn't get there 36 hours after the fact. He got in. And he was still ordering these guys to do what, D-Day, H-hour, all that stuff. He was telling them, you got to do this. The damn thing was all screwed up. The next thing you know, for us, we took Gila. All right. Now I was supposed to be the demolition man. I went across. Darby would be right alongside me. That's what he was. He demonstrated leadership. Understand? He didn't. He was no back. The very first boat, first guys to get off was us. We'd get off, and I'd have to dig my way through the darn sand to make sure there was no mines in the way. What's called that? And we were rather fortunate because the storm covered up a lot of the mines. So we got up there, and we finally got to the barbed wire fence, and there were two pillboxes that we could see right up plain as hell. Well, we got up next to them. So my job is to take that pillbox out too. So I was supposed to carry a heavy wire snippers. And Darby said, "Where the hell is that damn wire snipper?" I said, "What do you want them for?" "We got to get over the fence." I said, "I'll show you how." I picked them up. I got him on the belt and I threw the boogie right over the damn thing, and I got the next guy, threw him over. I said, "You lay there and we'll crawl over you." You know, that was the simple way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And another thing I figured out to do at that point, we used to have a carry-on bag. We would only carry 80 rounds of ammunition, rifle, 2 hand grenades, and a canteen of water, and no helmet. All right? So I said, to cross that darn minefield, I said, "Why don't we throw these damn bags on the ground, and if it doesn't explode, we can walk and jump on them." Well, the other boys weren't in on that, unfortunately, and we lost 3 officers and 3 men on the beach. And I'll tell you how it gets. When you fall down on a mine or anything, you become a pad to jump on. They stomped the guys right into the ground. They couldn't help; they had to. That was the safest thing, is they just run on them guys. So that's one of the big things that happened there. Of course, they said there would be 6 pillboxes that I'd have to take out, so I carried out a couple of other hand grenades. Well, the first 2 was taken out by one of our Browning automatic men. He just stuck the thing in there. You know, it's like a pillbox around. You fire into one of them, and then those bullets circle around good. Well, they took them 2 out. But there was 2 more guarding those 2. In other words, back of the beach was another 2, what's called pillbox that you could see. Well, I had to take them out. So what you do is get up, sneak up on the buggers and try to find air holes. Any holes that you can throw a hand grenade in. And that was my job, besides getting across it. We wound up, they said, well, the British said, as far as we know, there's only 6 pillboxes you got to watch out for. I said, okay, we'll take the damn things out. That's no problem. We wound up, there were 16 pillboxes. They weren't pillboxes, but they were buildings on the corner, all right? Street corner. And they made them into pillbox so they could cross-fire anything that comes up that gets in there. And again, it was my job. I would call back, "Give me your damn hand grenades. We're going to take these buggers out." And I think I knocked out the 6 altogether, and the rest of them were silent. But when we went back and looked, there were 16 of them. That every cross-piece had them. Well, Colonel Darby made a mad dash for their headquarters. That was their fort. There was like a fortress there. And we made a mad dash for that. The right bunch went after the garrison, blocked off the garrison, and the other boys went and took the gun positions around protecting Gila. They took them out. Well, in order for us to get in there, they had 2 British destroyers. Now, let's give you some idea what this colonel could do. He said, "I got to have protection. We don't have no artillery." They said, all right. They took those 2 old destroyers. They beached them. They actually put them right on the beach and to steady the darn thing, kept silent, and they were told, and we would tell these guys time and again, don't ever fire over the top of a Ranger. No artillery, nothing. When we say go, you do it. And the British Admiralty will follow that right on. They were knocking the living hell out of those 2 destroyers. And they wouldn't fire back until we fired the very pistols up, indicating that we had taken the main position. But then they just opened up and wiped out everything. They knocked the hell out of the whole darn works. But in the process, the British lost 2 or 3 boat handlers, and then they had what looked like a tank on a boat with 45 calibers on them, and they could, to protect us. They had a couple of searchlights, and they just searchlight and hit that. They seen that thing, and they blew the hell out of it. Now, what happens then? Now remember, Patton didn't get on the beach, so he didn't know what the hell was going on. So right off the bat. The next day, we looked off to the right, to the left of us, and here were 3 German tanks coming at us. These were German tanks. The Italians also had tanks. They had 6 of them. Later on after this, the 6 Italian tanks came through they were right through the city. Well, we got up on the 2nd floor, and Colonel Darby himself threw a hand grenade right on the back of one of them and blew the hell out of it, personally. I mean, he'd get in there and fight just like anybody else. There wasn't no damn monkey. But when he seen these 3 German tanks come, right away he said, Jesus, there ain't supposed to be no road between, Gila and the center of that town. There may be small roads, but they're nothing like that. But he knew that. Well, right away he called for naval support, our own Navy. Well, the Navy says, we can't take instructions from a lieutenant colonel. You can't tell us what to do. So Darby gets on the horn and he calls the British Admiralty. So right away they sent it would look like a small battleship, but it had 14-inch guns on it. So that thing wheeled. They didn't hesitate. They said, you tell us where to fire, we'll fire, So on their way in, he told them to fire a shot to get, to see what the distance is. Well, they got within, the first shot was about a mile short of the tanks. And he told them it's a mile short and do something. So the next thing you know, the salvo, they just blanket that whole damn area with 14-inch rounds. Now the British did that without him. They didn't even bother to ask us. Anything beyond. They said, anything you want, we'll get it for you if we got it. So that wasn't bad enough. After we got that, and then we got rid of the Italian tanks, here comes on the right side now, 32 German tanks. Now remember, Patton is supposed to be a tank commander. He couldn't get 1 tank or artillery gun on that beach. 5 miles of beach. Not a single artillery gun or tank could get on there, and here was 33 of them. And we seen them in the morning. Early in the morning, we seen the first of the German tanks coming. They come in snaking. They snake behind all the like hills or something so that you can't get a good shot. And we called in the British, see, they had a territorial line for some reason or other. We were in the British sector. They split Gila right down the middle, and to our left, that was American territory. And they had, our cruisers were going back and forth, and we yelled at them and screamed. He said, damn fool, those are German tanks. He said, no, they're supposed to be American tanks. That's what they're supposed to be. The Navy said, they were following instructions, right? And we told them they're German tanks. No, I said, look at the markings. No, they wouldn't, you couldn't do nothing with them. So Darby gets mad as hell at them. He says, you lousy bastards, he says, I'll fix it. He called the British Admiralty. Now the British Admiralty had the King George V, the best battleship in the whole fleet. 16-inch guns, all right? He called them up and he says, we can only last 15 minutes. Can you do something for us? He says, all right, we'll be there. In 15 minutes, our guns will be able to reach that land. So they start coming in, and when the American Navy seen this battleship coming at them, all right, because they were told, get the hell out of the way because you're in our fire range. So the Navy right away said, well, that broke all the rules, that all the obligation. They said, no, we'll fire. So the first cruiser comes up. There was the Boston and the Philadelphia. The first one comes up in range, and they ducked the guns, and when they fired, now get this, 15 feet over the top of the closest tank, which was only 1,000 yards away. Right over the top of them, 15 feet over. Well, these Navy, they got smart, because the next cruiser was coming around the bend to follow this one. And he told them, fire broadside into the air. And what that does, it rocks your cruiser, right? It says, when you get over here, we want you to be able to fire. When that second cruiser, I think it was the Philadelphia, I'm not sure. When that second one come, they could cut the grass. They knocked out the 3 tanks right off the bat, and then they start opening up on them. And then the Germans turned around and got the hell out of there with, I think we knocked out about 6, 7, I don't know what it was, a whole bunch of them. But that was the Mark V's that was up. And they captured these guys and asked them, why the hell didn't you guys open fire? You could have sank those cruisers, you could have sank 10 or 15 boats out there, you could have knocked out everything. They said, we couldn't believe that they couldn't believe their orders and anything else, because of course they got orders too to do. They could have hit that road and wiped out the whole damn thing right on the spot. And that's the way they saved it. Now again, never got in the newsprint, never did anything. Darby never got a medal for all of it. What the hell, he had to get a medal for that, you know. Got nothing. They wouldn't even give him recognition. And Patton told him, he said, you boys done a wonderful job, but I'm not going to give you any recognition. Patton himself, he said, I won't give you any recognition because you didn't take my orders. Which goddamn fool was out, he was out there 8 miles at sea. All right, I could tell you more about that. So, when we realized that the German tanks came in to the right, all right, we knew that they had to come from someplace that was safe enough to go. But we sent out some of our best boys out there in the place called Butera, which was like a hilltop fortress. You had to snake back 2 times to get up to the top of the thing. So this captain, he was pretty damn good. He went out there and he looked around and he says, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Because, see, the natives would go up on them like a fire escape. They go straight up. Instead of going all zigzagging all the way up, all right? They'd take a fire escape system and get up to the top of the damn thing. So he said, if we take our bunch, we can get up to the top before they lock the door, blockade the system. And we get there fast enough, they have to leave it open to get their own troops out of there. So he turns around and the 2 switchbacks, all right? The 2 switchbacks were guarded by flamethrowers. And if anybody had come up anywhere near that, they could have simply, they'd just blow them away with the flamethrower. Well, this captain gets an idea. He told Darby, he says, you back us up. When we get up there, I want you to bring in some units. So he talks to Patton. He could still talk to Patton, you know, even though he was court-martialed, I don't know how many times. He says, give me some of your men. I want to take your men up there. Take these, you know, some light tanks and artillery to get over the top, and we can spread their, you know what I mean, protect that, take the other side of the hill. So this captain gets up there and he says, you wait for me, wait for my orders. He says, okay. He goes along and he shoots these guys with the flamethrower pack on the back, and the 2 switchbacks. All you see is burned bodies. So they could wiggle their way up there. But the other group went in, one of our companies went right through Butera to the other side because there was a blockade on the other side. And as long as they didn't know that their own men couldn't get through there, they left it open. So that's what we got through to darn. We cut Sicily right in half. Again, Patton turns around and says, you know, it's a remarkable job. He said, I couldn't believe that. And he told Darby, he said, if any damn fool in the 2nd Armored Division will follow you, you can have him in the Rangers. Then he turns around and says, if any one of those guys ever join the Rangers, I'm going to charge him with desertion and insubordination. He was going to court-martial them. That was Patton. Patton was one of the most ridiculous goddamn men that you ever seen in your life. You couldn't believe that he wouldn't take orders. He wouldn't stop the logic. He wouldn't change anything. You had to follow the damn step by step no matter what happened. It was gone. You couldn't reason with him.
Now, after Butera,
Pardon? Yeah.
you were pulled out to...
Oh, no, we went to Palermo because we had a clear shot to Palermo after you get Butera. So we got our men into Palermo, we got into a position again. Then we brought in our own regular troops, and they were originally supposed to go around Sicily, like, you know, right, the roadway right around it. But when we cut it in half, the fighting in Gila set us back 2 weeks, which would have meant that the next invasion of Italy couldn't take place, would have to be postponed or some darn thing, and they was worried over that. And Darby cut that son of a gun right in half, got our men into Palermo, and of course then they reorganized. From there, we took off and went to a sort of a rest camp again. And we were getting ready for the invasion of Italy. But what we did most of the time, we got a hold of. We got back on British boats. See, that's where, instead of being on land, we'd get on these, what's called, we'd sleep in hammocks, you know, and on these landing crafts. They had like, actually they were cross-channel, they were cross-channel ferries that they made into this thing. They only had a 10-foot draft. And boy, I'll tell you, in a rough sea like they had it in the Mediterranean, that thing was bouncing this way and bouncing that way. But anyway, that's what happened there.
You know, when did you all go into Italy?
Pardon?
When did you land in Italy?
We landed at a place called Maiori, which was 10 miles from Salerno. And again, we could have cut the German lines immediately, their supply lines to Salerno, the Appian Way, behind, on their way from Naples. There was like a highway right to Salerno. And we were looking down on them right like this. And Darby would scream and yell. He said, "My God sakes, give us some guns, give us something that we can hit the buggers. It's not on our, it's not scheduled." See, we had to take that position to protect the flank from what's called, to keep the Germans off. That was a diversion. The commandos landed 5 miles beyond Salerno, the two places that they wanted to make sure that they could hold it to the boys' line. And whoever planned Salerno had to be either the most stupid guy in the world. Here was a beach about 6 to 8 miles, all right? The most beautiful landing position you could get into. But 5 miles inland was the Germans and guns. And they had this main road behind them to supply them all the time. Mm-hmm. So what happens there, we were hanging on. We took a hell of a beating because they counterattacked us 6, 7 times. And I mean, they came right up to the point where they would send their men right around our position. We would watch them, sit there and watch buggers go right by, but never bother to touch them. There was no damn sense. You waste ammunition or everything, but you wouldn't gain nothing, you know? So they circle around. We knew they had to go back down, so we just sat there and watched them. And we held that darn position. So, and we told them time and again, we just screamed and yelled, "Give us some supplies, give us some men, we'll go in there and cut the line up." Well, the Germans, the second day, they knocked out not a cruiser, what's it called, destroyer. And they hit about a whole bunch of ships out at sea. They were able to hit anything within 8 miles out at sea beyond Salerno beachhead. And they just wiped out everything. They just knocked the living hell out of them. Then Clark, General Clark was the commander. So he comes up and he calls Darby. He says, "Come on over here and go rear guard action. We've got to pull off the beach. We can't, it's untenable." And Darby says, "Oh, you go to hell. We're going to stay here." And Darby was quite a man, you know. So we went over to Salerno. I went with him. And we got a hold of the commander and said, "Can you guys hang on a couple more days? If you can, we'll try to get some support for our position and we'll cut the German lines." So finally, the commander said, "Yeah, it sounds like a good idea." This is Bob Laycock, Brigadier Laycock. Now, with them, you know, they're not fussy. They'll put a one-star general in front of 200, 300 men, commandos, and that's the way they could do it. And of course, we had a similar setup. They had to have lead men up front. So they get together and they called up the British Admiralty. They said, "What the hell are you going to do? And we're in a hell of a position here." They said, "Never mind, we'll take care of it." So they told the United States Navy that since you can't bring your tanks on shore, get them at Gila, Sicily, whatever they want. Empty the boats or dump the tanks in the ocean or anything. Get ready to extradite all the boys off the beach. And finally, Darby wound up with over 5,000 men under him. Now remember, he had to set these guys up for night fighting because it was all hilly, you know. this bunch of hills that were there. There were 2 generals, and they claim up to 10,000 men were there eventually. They're all under direct orders of Colonel Darby. He told them exactly what to do and what not to do. And we got this airborne with the dismounted guns. I don't know if you ever know, the airborne had a 75 like a howitzer. They could take it apart and put it together. Well, they got them up there. When they got that up there, then we had something to shoot at them. You know, we could shoot downhill on them. And that's what saved that damn, what's it called, our position. But I just talked about screwing up. That was the damnedest thing. We told them we can do it. They don't listen.
Well, let's jump ahead here.
Yeah.
Let's jump ahead here a little bit.
Yeah.
We're getting down to the end of the tape. Were you with the Rangers at Cisterna?
No. But I found out about Cisterna, what happened there. It was, again, in my viewpoint and a lot of our Ranger viewpoint, Uncle Sam tried to get rid of the Rangers. Deliberately they called Colonel Darby. Remember now, Darby was a frontline officer. They would never go into combat with a battalion without him exactly in a position. He would set the whole thing up. They called him into headquarters near Algiers. I know on one of the landing sites they had there that we had control of. And they called him in, and they sent orders under his direction. He told our boys up there, that 2 of our battalions, you go in and knock the hell out of the German tank brigade and artillery unit, which we could have done. I mean, it sounds natural. I mean, for us to go at night, get in there and silent and make sure they don't fire the guns or move the tanks. All right. And what was supposed to happen? They told the officers there. They said, "You guys do that, and then we'll bring in tanks and everything else. Because if we get our tanks close enough to theirs, then it's an equal. You know, the distance it don't make no difference anymore. You can knock the hell out of them no matter what they got." So General Truscott said he had direct orders that this is the way it's got to be done, and they were going to have naval protection also, everything. They double-crossed them. They told them to go in. When they went in, came to 3 o'clock in the morning. They said, "What the hell is going on here?" They were supposed to get their orders, you know what I mean, either fight or get the hell out. They were told to stay there. So they practically wiped out a good deal of our men at that time.
Now, how did you end up your service in Italy?
Pardon?
When did your service?
Oh, I got hurt at Maiori. 8 days over there. Yeah, I got out. No, he treated me right. I was what's called. I was working on a new type of aerial bomb that the Germans left. There was the delayed action aerial bombs, and the first time they ever come down. So I was going to tear one apart to see what I could do. Tied a rope on it. I was ready to dangle it over a cliff. Boom! The damn thing went off on me because I didn't know it was a chemical or what's called. So he got me onto a PT boat. He ordered a PT boat to come in and pick me up and take me to a hospital ship, and away we went back to Africa and right on through. I was discharged. He discharged me with 100% disability. He says, "You're going home and you're disabled. You don't have to worry about a damn thing anymore." When I got back, I went to White Sulphur Spring Hospital to get my nerve, and it was cut. So they patched it up. And every place I went, 4 places in Africa, and at White Sulphur, they said, "You're 100% disabled. You can't go back there. You're going to get to." I get to Camp Fannin, Texas. They said, "Nope, you look all right to us. We'll give you 30%. I said, "Where's my records?" I wanted to get my records. You know, I said, I can prove it. "You have no records. And if you don't have any records that you're carrying, right, they can do any damn thing they want with you." And Darby told me, he says, "You go there, you go to the Pentagon, get your damn records." He said, "That's the only place they got them." And I told him, I said, "That's where we go." So I went to the Pentagon. I said, "Hey, the Board of Correction there," and I says, "I want to get my records." They said, "We can't help you. But if you get the records, we'll honor them." That was a catch-22. They ain't going to release the records, and I can't get them. Now what? And that's been going on for 50 years. I've had everything under the sun. I've tried every darn thing. I went to Benning twice. I went to what's it called, Army, big Army base there, half a dozen times. They wouldn't do a damn thing for them. And they wore Ranger patches. I ran into the Chief of Staff of the Department of Army at the airport. And I says, why the hell can't I get them? You're a Ranger, go get me my goddamn, I can talk to the Rangers, you know. I said, get me my damn records. He said, to tell you the truth, I can't get those records. They're under heavy guard, and they will not permit. He said, if you're lucky enough to get a ombudsman, now get this, to go into those records, but you better know exactly what you're looking for, because they're not going to search. How do you like that? No, how am I going to do it? So I'm sitting here without nothing. So you stop to figure, I mean, there's a lot to it. Now comes up, let's bring you up to date here on something. You've heard the word weapons of mass destruction. That the United States is going to change, actually is going to change over its army now. They're going to have black berets and the army of one and all this damn horseshit. We had that 50 years ago, but anyway, we went through it. Now, let me tell you something. If an enemy is determined, he'll come into New York City and blow the hell out of something, and the state of New York will be gone right off. Now, what I would suggest is have a special elite force like a New York State Guards that's commando trained type, get into the commando training system, all right? That would protect New York State no matter what happens. And not only that, but that same force could go all over the world and find out what the hell's going on. That's what I'd like to get to. That's what I'd like to tell the governor. I'd say, you better do something, because it's up to him to protect his men, protect the state. You depend on the Pentagon, and you got to be as crazy as a bedbug. You might as well go to Hollywood, because they got more authority than the Pentagon is. And if you talk to a congressman, not a chance.
Well, in the last few minutes we have left here, when you look back at it all now, after all these years,
yeah,
what stands out the most in your mind?
The attitude of the United States Army. I mean, they're absolutely beyond reason. After they've seen what happened to the British at Dunkirk, they seen us land. I mean, they knew we led the way, but you see, they were so embarrassed. You can't embarrass the United States Army. You can't embarrass. You can't find fault with them. You can't. In fact, if you want to wreck them, it's very simple. You ask them for the D-Day original plans, all right? Then ask for the after-action report. Let us see what you did. Just try that once with them. I'll tell you right now, they'll beat your brains in for that one, because they never want to. They don't want to show what mistakes they made or what error they pulled.
So what did you do after the war?
Well, my folks had a store, a vending, and then I got into the vending machine in a small factory over there, and that's what I did, and that's what they took. I went in there and I got up to 60%. Then I went to the hospital, and I says, I want to turn myself in. I can't think right or all that stuff. He says, let's look at it. He looked at it and checked over. He said, look, we'll give you 80% and call you unwell so that you can't work. We'll give you 100% right afterwards. Then that was 75. 86 comes along. They have another review. This time they had a means test. I don't know if you recall that or not. Yeah. The VA had a means test. They went over the whole thing, and they says, you look all right to us, we'll cut you right back down to 60. Now, I was supposed to have 100 all the way through. I mean, logic would tell you you can't get out of the battlefield without a damn good witch hunt, unless you're really hurt. And you couldn't get past the 3rd General in Algiers. You couldn't get past them unless you were hurt. You go to Oran, you couldn't get past them either. You go to Casablanca, again, they study over everything, to read it over. Says, you sure we can't operate on you? We want to operate. I said, the hell with you. I'm supposed to go home. They said, well, we know that, but we'll still operate. I said, no, you don't. I'll go home first. So they put me on a boat, came in, I got over to the White Sulphur Spring Hospital, and they did the operation.
So after the war, you were in the vending business.
Pardon?
After the war, you were in the vending business?
Yeah, I got,
You married?
we actually had a food cart that we'd take into the plant. It was the Spalding Fiber Company out there. It's a small plant. And I used to have that, and I said, well, hell, I'll put vending machines in there. So that was when they first started coming out. So I put up the whole bunch of vending machines. And toward the end, the factory was going to be turned over to somebody else or something of that nature, you know what I mean? So they got rid of me. So we still had a store and like a delicatessen, all right? But it wouldn't pay, if my father wasn't working and the family wasn't working, I couldn't have done anything. I couldn't work. I mean, you're in pretty bad shape. I'll tell you another thing that stands out. If you think that a guy going into combat isn't hurt, I mean, isn't set back a hell of a way, you made one big mistake. That is one of the meanest things this nation's ever done. Ignore the fact that guys in combat are set back, as they say, shell-shocked. That you can't tell that to the VA. You don't get no, where's your scar? Where's your, you know? See, the VA doesn't have the word combat disabled. They have service connected, which means anybody can be there. In fact, I've run into a lot of guys at the VA that they're only in service maybe 3-4 months or something. They hurt their knee or a back or something, and they get better treatment than I did because they weren't mentally fit. After a while, then I went before the board of correction a couple of times, and I had a special board. And again, I was under duress, and I told them I was under duress, and they said, no, there's no such thing. I said, you can't tell me that a combat man doesn't get under duress after being very intensive. Now, I was in 11 engagements now, 11 times alongside of Colonel Darby, and I'll tell you, you to go once. In fact, we had an occasion one time where somebody says, where's the front line? Well, I said, listen to all the combat action. If you hear a lot of noise and that, Darby's there. You go up there and see him. He said, the hell with you, I ain't going up there. That's where he would be. He wanted to be, he had to be. That's where Rangers fight at night. They have to be up front to see what's going on.
We'll give you the last word here because we've got about a minute or two left.
Pardon?
We have about a minute or two left.
All right.
Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Well, what I would say, if I had a chance to say to the governor of New York State, is get a damn Ranger-type organization that takes care of New York State in particular, that's ready to strike back at the enemy like the Rangers did. All right? In fact, they used to have Rangers back in 1700s, you know.
Sure.
They said, have that damn unit ready, because if you're going to depend on the United States Army, you might as well throw everything away. You ain't got nothing. All right?
Thank you.
Got it?
Got it.
Thank you.